Just ticking over to 18 to 8 with some diesel on your Wednesday. And every couple of weeks we catch up with techologist Matt Dickerson because he delves deep and finds out all of the crazy great stuff that's out there. And how you doing there today, Matt?
I spent hours just for you, Dan. I spent hours researching, diving into things to find out some good, juicy stuff to talk to you about.
Well, you know I'm a gadget guy.
Exactly.
But we have been talking, and obviously this is going to be top of mind today, about COVID vaccines and the certificates that, because we talked about this, Sarah, didn't we? Like, was it the beginning of the week or last week?
Yeah, last week. It's been, a bit of a topic of conversation because they're looking to introduce it so that restaurants can find out if we've been vaccinated and potentially stop us from eating there.
Yeah.
If they want to.
But, Matt, we weren't sure about how that was actually going to happen, but you may have found an answer.
Well, there's certainly a COVID-19 certificate is something that the government has talked about, and you might be able to go to your MyGov app, for example, and go through and see that and show that to someone. But that's all a bit clumsy and it's a bit hard to get into, and you're standing there at the restaurant trying to get in and you, hold on, I just got to remember my password, and I won't be a minute, I'll be there in a second. So Apple and Google have both made it much easier, so you can actually download that COVID-19 certificate once it's available in your MyGov app. You can download that to your Apple Wallet or to your Google Pay app. So it gets to the point where more and more now we're finding that you only need to leave the home with your phone because you've got your credit card on there, you've got your driver's license on there, you've now got your health cards on there, your Bupa, your various health cards on there. And now once you get to the point where you've got a COVID-19 certificate, you'll have that on your phone as well. So that'll be really your ability to get in everywhere. And hopefully we might even get international borders opened up one day. And I suspect that they will only be opened up once you've got that vaccination, so you can show that as you get on the airline. So this will be a really important thing as we try and open up and start to move around again one day somewhere in the future somewhere.
So is this a third-party application or is this in conjunction with the government?
This is in conjunction with the government, so effectively the government is going to be issuing these certificates, and the idea here is that the Apples and the Googles of the world are saying, well, we need to work in with governments around the world to make it as easy as possible for people to use our phones and to use the features on those phones. So essentially the government will issue the certificate, you'll have your vaccination certificate. One thing that's interesting, and I actually learnt this last night, I was talking to a doctor about vaccinations and how you could prove about your vaccination. If for some reason you had one version of the vaccination, say Pfizer or AZ, and then for some reason that next application wasn't available for you, so you switched over to another one, you effectively would be still safe in terms of your vaccination, but it wouldn't be recognised by the government. So if you switch teams halfway through, then it won't be a valid certificate you'll be issued. So you need to have that same jab twice rather than switching teams between the two.
Well, that's good information to know for sure. All I can think about is when you brought up about the phone, you got your credit cards in there, you got your driver's license, you're going to have the certificate. Mate, we're just one medical scan away from Star Trek and the tricorder.
It is a bit like that. I mean, people do say to me, what about if my battery goes flat on my phone, my whole life is useless? But it's a bit the same as the old days when you had a wallet. And if someone stole your wallet, you'd go, oh, right, what do I do now? Yeah, so, and I'd rather, not that I want someone to steal my phone, but I'd rather lose my phone than my wallet because it's much easier to restore everything back on a new phone than it is to get all my wallet back. So, yeah, look, it's not great if your battery goes flat or if your phone gets stolen, but it is recoverable.
Well, just charge your phone maybe, and it'll be a little bit difficult if you don't have a house because of bushfires or something like that. There's an app now for bushfires as well. Is that right?
An app to actually help you, Sarah, work out how vulnerable you are for a bushfire. And there's a couple of things that feed into that app. First thing you do is you actually put in your address. That kind of makes sense because there are some addresses that are more prone to bushfires and some other addresses that aren't. So you put your address in and that'll give you a first part of that rating. But then you answer a series of questions about your house, the type of construction of your house, what's around your house, how much rubbish have you got, have you cleaned the gutters out lately, just various questions about your house. And once you do all that, you'll get a star rating. Everyone seems to be star rating things these days. So you get a star rating of your house, and that will be 1 to 5 stars about how vulnerable you are. The good news is you might get a very low star rating and you say, oh no, I might as well leave the home now. It's going to be destroyed this summer. But the good news is you can actually go through then and look at the information and you'll get some tips on that. Some things you can't change. For example, if you've got a house that's made of brick or a house that's made of timber, then you're not going to be able to change that easily. Obviously, a brick house is less vulnerable in a bushfire. But if you've got things like a kayak that's sitting around the house, just near the house, or you've got a patio that's actually adjoining the house, and you might say, well, do I really need that patio where it is at the moment? Can I change that in some way, shape or form? So you can actually do things to reduce your risk of bushfire.
Is this one made by the government?
This one's actually put together by a rural fire service type group. So it's not government as such. It's actually, I'm just trying to remember who it was put together.
An expert.
Yeah, so it's not just some random person who said, oh, I'll just put this together. It's actually using a bunch of experience from people that have been involved in bushfires. And I'm just not sure of the organisation. You've got me there, Dan. Good work. I'm just not sure of the exact organisation that put it together.
Well, you're full of information. Like, you're gonna find a gap here and there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you worked hard for it.
Does it just give you a rating, or does it give you tips on how to improve your place depending on what you've put into the app?
Yeah, both. So it gives you a rating, and then you can just throw your hands up in the air and say, that's it, my life is over, it's all going to be destroyed. But you can actually go through and it'll give you tips on how to improve it, on maybe things like things my wife says, clean up around the house, get up and clean the gutters out, that sort of thing. But there are other tips as well. Yeah, move that kayak, that's right.
Well, let's finally talk about something that is so integrated into our life that if there's any interruption, we just don't realise how integrated it is. That is the internet, and the internet speeds around the place. The ACCC has hauled over the service providers to say, well, maybe what you're saying is not actually true. Yeah,
it is. It's a really complicated issue, this one. The three telcos, Telstra, Optus and TPG, are being dragged into the court with the ACCC to say that the speeds that you're promising consumers, you aren't delivering. Now, they're saying, yeah, you're right, we are doing that, we're sorry about that, we'll take some steps to fix it up, but it's not our fault, it's the NBN's fault. And this is specifically focused on fibre to the node. As we all know, we've got fibre to the premises, fibre to the node, we've got HFC, we've got fixed wireless, we've got NBN, we've got satellite, which shouldn't be called NBN. So you've got a whole range of different ways you can get connected to the NBN. But this specifically focuses on fibre to the node. And the issue here is that the telcos don't really know what sort of speed you're going to get when you connect with fibre to the node, because it depends how far away from the node you are. And this is the failing of the government from many years ago. I don't want to get into government bashing here, Dan, but many years ago we were going to be rolled out completely with fibre to the premises. And then some genius in the government said, we'll save a bit of money by going fibre to the node. And that was okay if you lived right next to the node, you were getting similar speeds to fibre to the premises. But if you happen to be a few houses or maybe 50 metres or 100 metres from where that node was, your speeds got to the point where they weren't much better than good old-fashioned ADSL. What will happen over time is we'll roll out fibre and replace all that fibre to the node, so it's actually just made it a more expensive rollout. But this is where the ACCC is saying to those carriers, if you've got a fibre to the node connection, you can't go making any promises because, let's face it, the NBN's not going to be able to deliver on those promises. So it's a really complicated issue.
So for those who aren't familiar with how all of this data and fibre to the node and copper networks is, imagine it like your water. So you've got your mains that run past the front of your house, and you're trying to siphon off that water with a garden hose rather than a big one. Well, you're not going to get very good water pressure.
Well,
it's even exactly what you're saying.
It's worse than that, Dan. The garden hose might be pretty old. It might have a few leaks in it. It might have a few holes in it. It might have been run over by the car a few times, a bit crushed in places. Because let's face it, this copper that's in the ground has been in the ground in some places for 50, 60, maybe 70 years. And you're connecting...
Way outdated.
Yeah, you're connecting this great high-speed fibre network, and to your analogy there, and then you're trying to siphon off that little bit with this really clunky old bit of copper that's been there forever. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. The thing that really doesn't make a lot of sense is there are some instances where the copper was that bad that it just was giving no connection. So the NBN came along and re-rolled out copper in those places to fix up the old copper was there, because that place was targeted for fibre to the node, rather than just say, hey, guess what? This copper's too bad, we should put fibre to the premises in here, we'll run fibre all the way. So it is a bit of a failing there, I think, from government and from NBN, and the poor old telcos are the ones that are left carrying the can, and they're the ones in trouble from the ACCC.
Yeah, so just real quick, in summary, to finish us up, what do you think will come out of this ACCC?
I think what will happen is that the three carriers will basically go out and say to consumers, we're sorry, we didn't quite get it right, and then they'll just downgrade their promises. And that's what's happened in the past when, for example, some of the speeds were announced initially. They were promising 100/40. In other words, 100 meg download, 40 meg upload. The ACCC said, look, people aren't getting 100, they're only getting 98 or 97. And so they had to actually downgrade the speed promise, even though they were still delivering at those speeds. So then they said, okay, between these hours, you'll get 90 meg minimum rather than 100 meg maximum. And so I think they'll just rephrase the way that it's actually going to be advertised to consumers.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt, for that. Very, very interesting tech talk.
Thanks, Sarah.